Johannesburg 2025, Africa's moment on the global stage at the first G20 Summit on the continent. This weekend, Johannesburg is hosting history, the first ever G20 Leaders Summit on African soil, taking place on 22 to 23 November 2025. Under the theme, Solidarity, Equality, Sustainability, South Africa, as president of the G20 this year, is pitching itself not just as a host, but as a powerful voice for the global South. While this is a big deal, a milestone for Africa for decades, Africa has often been on the periphery of global economic decision-making. This summit represents a symbolic and practical shift. Africa is hosting and defining part of the agenda. A platform for developing nations, South Africa wants to bring key issues, climate change, debt burden, inequality, and reform of global financial architecture, to the forefront. New voices, new direction. Under its G20 presidency, South Africa launched a special task force led by Nobel laureate Joseph Stiglitz to examine global wealth inequality. The findings of that task force are expected to feed directly into discussions this weekend, a testament to a long-term, principled vision rather than just symbolic diplomacy. Challenges and tensions. But it's not all smooth sailing. Several geopolitical and domestic tensions complicate what could otherwise be a moment of unity. U.S. boycott. Perhaps the biggest elephant in the room, Donald Trump has ordered a full U.S. boycott of the summit. He has accused South Africa of persecuting its white Afrikaner minority, claims that South African leaders strongly reject hosting a major global summit in an environment with such visible service delivery problems raises uncomfortable questions. Is this a legacy moment or a risk of embarrassing failures? Johannesburg itself is under scrutiny. Critics point to persistent challenges, water supply issues, load shedding, power cuts, potholes, and other infrastructure failures. This absence is deeply symbolic. As one of the G20's founding and most powerful members, the US not participating undermines parts of the multilateral purpose of the summit. Implementation versus rhetoric. The G20 under South Africa is not just about talk, there's a real push for actionable change. The B20 Business Forum, ahead of the summit, made strong policy recommendations, particularly on financing models, governance, and inclusive growth, but turning declarations into real, concrete change will hinge on follow-through long after the leaders leave Johannesburg. A vision of solidarity and Ubuntu. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, in his address at the G20 Social Summit, invoked the idea of Ubuntu, I am because we are. It's a powerful framing. Rather than global competition, this summit is being pitched as a space for mutual respect, shared responsibility, and cooperative development. Ramaphosa also linked this G20 moment to key moments in South African history, notably, the 1955 Kliptown Freedom Charter, which emphasized equal rights and solidarity. By doing so, he's not just hosting a political summit, he's anchoring it in South Africa's own journey from apartheid to democracy. What's at stake? For Africa, a successful summit could translate into more influence in global financial systems. It could also catalyze more investment, especially in climate resilience and infrastructure. For the G20, this summit tests whether the G20 can remain relevant as a global forum that balances both rich and developing economies. For the world, if the African-led agenda succeeds, it could shift how global problems like debt, inequality, and climate are approached, with more equity and shared burden. Risks to watch. Lack of consensus. With the US absent, will leaders be able to reach strong, enforceable agreements? Uneven follow-up. Grand commitments on paper don't always translate into real funding, especially when political cycles move fast. Domestic legacies. For South Africa, the summit is also a test of its own governance, whether hosting such a major event will leave lasting benefits or merely highlight internal weaknesses. Final thoughts. Johannesburg's G20 Summit is more than a political event. It's a symbol of change, a statement that Africa belongs at the table, that global governance must evolve, and that solidarity and sustainability can be central, not peripheral, to economic cooperation. But with geopolitical tensions and domestic infrastructure challenges, its success is far from guaranteed. If the summit achieves even a fraction of its ambitious goals, it could lay the groundwork for a more inclusive, equitable, and interconnected future. But failure could reinforce existing divides and disillusionment with multilateral institutions.